Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello the people, Wildcard here, and Halloween seems to have come early this year. No, we are not fighting an evil entity in a cape again. Yet. But instead, it's yet another game that hasn't come out yet. That's right. During Steam's Next Fest 2026, a bunch of developers released some new game demos for people to try and see what they like to buy in the future. One of the demos on offer was Trivia Murder Party 3 from Jackbox Games. And I also got a couple of people from the Wildcard Friends Brain Trust to help me play this work in progress, so let's waste no time and check out the intro, because for some bizarre reason, this game has an intro.
It was an abandoned summer camp like any other. Until a madman moved in. Now he's managed to trap the life forces of a group of camp counselors inside his hand-sewn dolls. Will they survive his bizarre games? Or will it be lights out?
Well, that's different. But to explain what I'm talking about, here's some history. Trivia Murder Party initially made its debut in Jackbox Party Pack 3, and it was a trivia game where wrong answers meant you would play a minigame that led to your death if you failed. The theme revolves around the players being invited to stay at the house of the mysterious host. So mysterious, in fact, that even his name is redacted. The second game, released as part of Party Pack 6 and later repackaged into the Jackbox Party Starter, did the same basic thing, but instead had the player stay at a hotel run by the same host. They tried to change it up by adding new minigame types and a gift mechanic if you were lucky enough to encounter that room, but the main premise is the same. Answer a question, get it wrong, play minigame, lose minigame, die, ghost chase the survivor for the final round. Throughout this, the dolls used to represent the players weren't really brought up that much because they basically functioned as avatars and not much else. So TMP3 is the first game to acknowledge that the dolls contain the spirits of dead camp counselors, because of course this time it's summer camp themed, which also means that instead of our host being a sadistic killer that invites people over to his property and kills them, he's now a sadistic voodoo freak that takes the souls of dead people and stuffs them in dolls to try and kill them over and over again. But of course the most important thing about any Jackbox game is the gameplay. Everybody knows that, but you wouldn't tell that from the settings menu. Look at all these graphics options. Benchmarking? Am I playing a Jackbox game or Friday the 13th? Normally I wouldn't complain about the hyper complexity of the graphics options when all I want to do is play the game, but as you'll probably notice from my footage, this game is somehow too intense for Streamlabs to handle no matter how many times I benchmark the damn thing. So apologies for any frame drops you may experience in this video, it's not a problem with your device. Another thing you'll notice upon actually starting a game is the option to create or join a room. What? Last I checked, this was a Jackbox game. You know, one copy of the game, enter the room code on your phone, that kind of shit. What the hell do you mean, room? Well, apparently when you create a room, it becomes the same Jackbox-style onboarding process we know and love, except now there's an invite button. I guess this game decided to go the Rift Tracks route and added the ability to join other people's games the traditional way. Let's hope this game doesn't take another page from Rift Tracks the game and fade into obscurity. But on a positive note, according to the phone screen, there are some emotes you can play with, and they do plan to add character customization at some point, so that's something I guess. Now let's briefly touch upon the things that haven't changed between games. Answer the trivia question, get it wrong, play a minigame, final round, escape with your life, tale as old as time. With that out of the way, let's go over some of the changes they made. Instead of numbered questions, they measure rounds in hours. Gee, I wonder where they got that idea from. So instead of going through questions until you reach the game's limit and playing one big minigame before the final round, we now have an easy question. And if everyone answers it right, you get the hard question. And if everyone gets it right again, the host says screw it and sends everyone to the minigame.
Screw it. I don't have patience for this. Let's go to the next game.
I'll cover the minigames individually later, but let's talk about the death thing. In the other two games, if you lose a minigame, you die and become a ghost. After which, you keep answering questions and coasting along until you reach the final round, where you try to overtake the remaining living player. In this game, there is no death. At least not until the end. Yeah, whenever you die, you get brought back to life, but you lose points, which the game represents as thread on your doll. What happens when you lose all your thread? I don't know, I didn't get that far. But how do you get more thread? Why? By answering questions correctly and winning minigames, of course.
What? Did you make her turn into ghosts? That would be silly.
It seems like a very weird and sudden change from what we had before. Imagine if I changed my vector sets mid-review without explaining why. Y'all would probably think I've lost my mind. I mean, I have, but still. The final round plays similar to the other games. All they change is the aesthetics. Instead of a living player running from ghosts who are afraid of the dark, you're all living players running from an unseen killer with a saw. But they do carry over the get all the correct answers at the end to win rule from TMP2. Now let's talk mini games. We didn't get that many in the demo, but TMP3 does have an interesting selection on offer. Counting. Watch the eyeballs fall and count how many land in the jar. I like this game. It requires players to pay attention to the screen, and it actually uses a jar for its intended purpose instead of making it a tool of perversion. What do you mean it's a bolt? I already wrote the... Never mind. Pouring. Look at your container of blood and pour more blood in it to try to fill it up to the top without going over. Since feedback is not immediate on the big screen, you have to basically split your focus between the game and your phone while visualizing the math. It's really clever, though I can submit it gets frustrating for those who don't quite grasp the concept on the first try and overfill a jar like me. Oh, now it's a jar! Math, a certified Trivia Murder Party classic. Answer math questions really fast and hope you do more than your friends. If you're like me, a math genius who loves to show off, this game is heaven. But if not, then just hope and pray you're not playing against me. Chainsaw. Look at the TV screen and tap a spot on the map to avoid death by chainsaw. The only clue you get is the graffiti on the walls to help you determine position. Other than that, just be fast and don't second guess yourself like I did. Chalices. Another carryover from the previous games. Drink from a chalice and hope another player didn't poison it. I guess one thing they did differently is if there are no safe players, everybody gets to poison a cup. Now let's talk about the atmosphere. I can appreciate the summer camp horror movie aesthetic, and I'm honestly surprised I didn't see it coming. However, some parts of the game, like the clock, the eyeballs, and the blood, tell me the designers got a bit confused as to exactly what theme they were going for. And then there's the brief bits where you hear the ghost of the host's mother. I could see this adding a bit of lore and depth to the game, but the way it's presented here kind of confuses me. In my entire playtime, I heard her try to be sweet to the campers once.
Maybe you should call this game Trivia Mercy Party.
But encourage his killing twice.
You'll never kill anyone with questions like that.
If you want to say she's complex, yeah, sure, whatever. But complex in and of itself is not an excuse to be contradictory. And if they were going for summer camp horror, I'm a bit disappointed there's no final girl aspect. Sure, you could say I'm spoiled by South Park to Fractured But Whole's Bring the Crunch DLC, but I think it would have been pretty cool to see like the spirit in the doll briefly possess a living camp counselor, run into the storage shed, gather every deadly weapon they could find, and finish off the host in a brutally gruesome fashion.
Look, I'm sorry, but there's no monsters allowed in this game.
But I digress. Before I wrap up the video, you're all probably thinking, but Wildcard, what about your other little nitpicks, like the questions not being read out loud anymore, or the lack of accessibility or streamer options, or the whole game resetting every time you finish it with no credit sequence? Well, here's the thing. This is a demo. It's a work in progress, and the game itself is actually in early access right now. Whatever minor grievances I have with the game are probably being worked on as we speak. And who knows, maybe one day the game will live up to its Steam page promises and require 128 gigabytes of storage to What? So how do I rate the game as it is? I know, how about something that has a very solid foundation, but is lost in its own mind and doesn't know what it wants, leaves questions that remain unanswered unless you're in the know, and is overall very scary to look at? Yeah, I got it. My first impressions rating for this demo is a suicide note out of 10. I like the idea of Trivia Murder Party 3 being summer camp themed. I like the way the environment tries to capture the aesthetic of summer camp horror, and the new mini-games are actually pretty clever and interesting in my opinion, but the macabre elements they added to the mix just seem to stand out, like they're there because people expect them, but they don't quite fit in with the theme. One thing they did seem to nail is making it scary. The footage I have doesn't do it justice, but when the blades come in during the chainsaw game, the jump scare that ensues is totally justified. The rule changes regarding death and thread don't bother me that much. Clearly they're trying something new, and it's a good attempt to make sure players pay attention and stay in the game longer. But as much as I can understand some aspects of the game and nitpick others, the package as a whole is somewhat off-putting and not in a good way, and the graphics options and frame drops aren't helping. I just wish there was a way I could see into the development process of this game and figure out what's going on in there. Well, to be fair, they do have a playtest available for people to request access. Maybe I should try getting in on that. Wish me luck. Special thanks to the paid channel members, and thank you all for watching. Check you later. Peace.